Welcome to day 30, media availability. 30 means that we're 2/3 done. So we're either 2/3 over or a third left. You can kind of look at it either way. And
last third's like first 2/3.
It is. In fact, the last third's about like 3 years. But anyway, we're looking forward to the next 2 weeks here. So with that, we did a lot of work on the floor today, finished up some Senate bills, and actually started moving some House bills. So let's open it up for questions.
I wanted to ask Senator Vickers about the CON-CON. You kind of have one of those resolutions that left, right, moderate, they're all united in their hatred of your resolution. Why is this a good resolution?
So it's interesting, but you say, it sounds like you're talking from one perspective. There's two perspectives to that. And there's a side that's really going after and supporting that on the, supporting the resolution. So, as you look at what's going on in the federal government, and I said this yesterday when we talked about it, there's some things that we disagree with what's happening in Washington. It doesn't seem like things it doesn't matter what party's in control, that we can't seem to get even a budget, let alone a balanced budget. Other things that are going on. So Article 5 convention is certainly something that's in the Constitution. It has the ability to, down the road, when we get a coalition of 34 states, to call a convention and make changes. And the other component is it gets closer to 34, it's got to be a shot across the bow with Congress that wake up, maybe we ought to do something.
But these groups have concerns that Eagle Forum, Alliance for Better Utah, all these groups, they have concerns that this could go sideways, that depending on where you sit on the political spectrum, your opposition's wish list gets granted, and you rewrite the entire Constitution.
It's interesting because I've been up here. This is my 11th year. Every year, I've listened to experts on both sides of that. The first few years I was in the House, I was just kind of awestruck. I didn't know, and I listened to both sides. But realistically, at the end of the day, ask yourself the question: can 38 states come together on something that's bad for the country? I mean, they can't even come together on something that's good for the country, let alone something that's bad for the country. So, and that's the high bar. That's a high bar. You have 34 states to call a convention, 38 state legislatures or 38 conventions from states have to approve that ratification. So pick whatever it is, your poison that you think that could destroy the Constitution. Pick that, and then just tell me, you really think you're going to get 38 states to go along with that? I don't think so.
Other comments? A lot of us, in fact, I'm a real advocate for the 10th Amendment, states' rights, and I keep hearing it over and over again that we believe in states' rights, and Utah's arguably, I think, one of the number one states in the country. We think we lead. We continue to lead. But if we really believe in states' rights, we aren't coalescing with the other states around us very well. We do very well internally, and we have groups like NCSL and ALEC and CSG, and we have conversations legislatively. State to state, it isn't as cohesive as what I think it ought to be. And as you look at this opportunity, I think it's an opportunity for states actually to move forward. And the other part of the Constitution, besides Article 5, that 10th Amendment, to actually be able to exercise that. And if you truly believe in the Constitution, you believe in the 10th Amendment, you combine the two together with an Article 5, and it's time for the states to lead.
If we could switch to the tax reform package that was unveiled yesterday, even though we still haven't seen the bill, I'm wondering what your reaction to that is as majority leadership here, President and Senator Vickers. It only takes the rate down to 3.1%. The governor talked about 1.75. So a lot of people are going to be paying new taxes on services at a 3.1% rate. And I know there's some income tax drop as well, although that's tempered with some other changes to income tax rather than a larger rate drop.
So my take on it, and we may have others, is that this bill is starting in the House. The House needs to lead on it. They've got issues that I think they're trying to work through in their body, and so I would probably direct your comments as far as the details of the agreement to the House and let them take the lead. I would say that we understand that there's a problem still, and we know that in the 70s and 80s, 70% of our GDP was things that we buy, and we've talked about that many times before, and now it's only 40%. We saw it in the last budget numbers. Our general fund was very, numbers, so the year-over-year growth were small compared to the education fund. And right now, as far as the details of this, I'm going to let Speaker Wilson in the House speak mostly to it.
But what was your reaction to those details, knowing that it may change before it comes over here? Was 3.1 where you wanted to see that number land?
My reaction is to get tax policy. I think I've been pretty consistent with that. And you saw a combination. We talked earlier about whether the reductions ought to be income tax or whether they ought to be sales tax. Looks like they're both. And so if you can get both, how do you get better? And so instead of trying to decide where you go one way or the other, it appears that the plan actually allows for sales tax and income tax reductions. And so it's probably not as great a sales tax reduction as maybe the governor wanted, but it has some income tax element in it. And I think we need to wait for the entire bill to be totally released and see what it is then.
But do you like the numbers? Do you like the numbers that they've put forward as far as the level of dropping?
Yeah, I don't think, really, I don't know that I like any of the numbers. I wish we could leave it the same in reality if we could. But the fact that we have a problem means we can't do that. So liking is kind of, I don't know, from the very beginning, I don't think any of us like having to do this. But I think the fact that they're down, yes, I think it's better to have lower numbers. I mean, we can focus a glass half full, half empty. If you're a car dealer, do you like what's the new number? Give it to me.
3.1.
You like 3.1 versus 4.7 or whatever it is, or 4.5 now. If you're a car dealer, you really like it, okay?
So, shouldn't you have seen a bill by now?
You know, this session, we talked just a minute ago, the next 2 weeks are like a year, so we'll see.
And the difference for some people, when they may look, they say, well, Medicaid was done, lots of hearings, done at the start of the session, people had time for input. This doesn't seem to be the same. You respond how?
Let's get the bill out and see. It's been talked about, and I think Senator Hembert talked last time he was here, and I feel the same way. We've been talking about this forever.
Is there time, though, in the remainder of the session, knowing that everybody, when you're broadening the tax on services, that everybody's going to come at you and want to carve this bill up like a turkey?
There's time to pass the bill. I'd like to make sure that we have adequate input from the public, okay? And I'm asking for that. I think last press availability, somebody asked me if special interest groups were going to come up and try to carve themselves out. I'd like them here, whether they carve themselves out or not. I'd like public here. I'd like everyone to weigh in on it as much as possible. And I actually think the more people that weigh in, the better outcome we'll have. I think we've seen that through the process. Is there time? I'm not going to say there's not. We all know it's short, and I'm not going to say there is, but we'll see. We're going to go at it, and if you don't go at it, you're not going to know.
Is the reality, though, that this winds up in interim?
Oh, wow, I wouldn't say that right now, because at the beginning of the session we talked about a Hail Mary. It's about ready to be thrown, and I'm not going to say it's not going to be caught until it hits the ground. Okay.
When you change the tax policy this much, and I know you say you've talked about it,
Yeah.
but others have said not so much. I mean, they don't know the details. Does 2 weeks give you what you need to catch a Hail Mary?
Well, we're going to see, aren't we? Like I said, it's going to be thrown in the air, and I'll tell you, at the last day, we'll know.
One of the things this bill does is delay the implementation of the most controversial piece, which is the extension of sales taxes on services, and gradually drops the rate over a year.
Yes.
Does that year give you the ability to get this passed in a short amount of time because you've got time to go back in and maybe make some changes in special session or even next session? Is that the idea behind the implementation date? You do the hard work now of saying we're going to tax services, and then between now and an election year, you've got time to maybe make some changes?
A lot of the bills we pass here are are tweaks and changes to things we've done previous. We'll do Medicaid for the rest of our life. Just because we're tweaking, we'll be tweaking it. With this, when it's passed, it will be tweaked and changed. And part of that is, as we move through this interim process, we need to find the actual, what actually happens. And as we go through that process, there's absolutely no question that this will be changed. It'll be tweaked. It'll be worked on. And as we get the numbers back and we get the reactions and find different ways to be able to implement what we've done, I think you'll see tweaks and changes to it. So the answer is absolutely yes.
But with an implementation delay, I mean, if you're going to start taxing services, why not do it right away and then tweak as necessary? Why wait a year?
Because we want to be cautious. Okay?
So
It's not political?
No.
Not to do it in an
Oh,
election
I've
year?
not heard that raised. Okay. What I've heard is we need to make sure our numbers are right. That's been the entire conversation I've heard. First time I've heard it's political is right now. Okay.
So
Go ahead.
it's been said before, everything's on the table. In your view, is everything still on the table?
Yeah. And my guess is you'll see it go through a process, and you may see things taken on or taken off or put back on as it moves through that process. Okay.
Is the minority party on board with this tax bill?
Well, again, we're waiting to see what comes out of the House, and we will, begin to digest this together as the upper house here. I think the year-long delay in implementation could be helpful for all the new industries that are going to have to be tracking and taxing, and it's an opportunity for them to again digest it as well. And so I think the delay is probably strategic, and it's an opportunity for us to cultivate honest feedback from, Uber, for instance, and the house cleaner, and these people that are going to have to at some point step up and participate in the economy more fully. So, I think that we are hoping to work together and to find a bipartisan solution to taxes this year, and I think that will happen.
What about the impact on Utahns? Because it's going to be a 3.1% rate applied across all of these services. Are you concerned as a minority party about that at all, especially low and middle income Utahns suddenly? Because the whole idea of broadening the base and lowering the rate is if you can get that rate, if you broaden it enough, you get the rate low enough that you don't really feel that impact as
Of course, we worry about the impact to lower and middle income families, but if we're going to have the opportunity to lower the sales tax, which is regressive, that is going to impact them more positively on a day-to-day basis. So I think again, wait. Let's talk about this in a couple days, and we'll have some more feedback. Let's see what the House brings us.
Good discussion, though. Other questions?
So there was, and I've been off for a couple of days, but my impression was that
We've missed you, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I've heard a lot of that today. My impression is that that there was an expectation that the bill would be ready on Monday, and then there was an expectation it would be ready on Tuesday, and now we're talking today or tomorrow, maybe by the end of the week. Are you able to disabuse us of
There's no question
this
we
isn't
wanted
quite
it.
working
We wanted
the way
it last week, and we wanted it the week before.
I thought when you said Monday, you meant next Monday.
So when it comes, we'll get it though. But we had this same discussion on Medicaid, and we were waiting for fiscal notes, and we were waiting for the bill. And I would just say this, that our staff, and it gives me a chance to talk about them a little bit, but our Office of Legislative Research and General Counsel and those that work in our fiscal analyst department, they're the best in the country. I don't know any better, and they're sought after by all the national organizations. I've been to meetings and conferences where they talk about Utah, and they don't talk about the legislators, they talk about our staff because how good they are. So we'll get it when we get it. They're working hard on it, and we appreciate what they're doing, and we had this 45-day session, and I actually think it's a good thing because it brings, you can hear the anxiety, you can hear the finality, you can hear the pressure, And we sometimes under pressure and those type of situations, we're able to get some great things done. So we hope this is a great thing, and we're going to be working hard on it, and we'll see it as it comes out, and then we'll have more discussion and opinions.
Just to be clear though, this was originally described as a GOP leadership bill, even though the House, it was going to start in the House, that you had Senator Fillmore and others on this side working on it, and that it was going to be presented as this is being backed
We've
by-
tried to have people from GOP leadership. Senator Kitchen's been on it, Senator Escamilla. This hopefully isn't looked at as a GOP bill. We're trying to make it as a legislative bill. This is not a problem that affects the GOP. It's not a problem that just affects the legislature. Obviously, this is going to affect the entire state. Look at our numbers. Pull out our numbers on the green sheet we passed out a few days ago. You'll see the problem, and it's not a GOP problem
But you're saying
or
you
a
need to,
GOP solution.
you're saying you want to wait to see what comes over from the House before you talk about whether you back it or not. Isn't this end product something that's being backed by both sides?
No,
Understanding
I think we
minority
back it.
participation.
There's no question
Is
we
it-
back it. But I think
Yeah.
the question is, as we get into the details of it, this is rolling out in the House, and we have deference for each body, and I think we're trying to give a little deference to the House.
Look, one thing we tried to do in this session, whether it be the budget, whether it be policy decisions, we've worked very hard to make it a legislative decision, not a House and Senate, not a GOP or Democratic Senate. We've worked hard
Really have.
across both aisles, from both houses, to be in sync and try and work together to do the best we can for the people of Utah.
We'll be together on this. Okay.
Of course, but senators, has in this initial trial period where things are starting to congeal, has there been any discussion about lowering taxes on food items or changing the tax structure on food to be dealing with junk food, which theoretically taxes are health
So
resources in the state?
So there's been a lot of discussion early on about changing the sales tax on food. A lot of people think that, again, because it's food and food's a necessity, that removing the sales tax on food actually helps the regressive nature of the sales tax. The Tax Review Commission actually analyzed that many years ago. They actually looked at it because sales tax on food is so consistent. It removes the volatility in our sales tax. They actually recommended that tax be put back on food, and that then credits be given to those lower income or populations. They felt that was a more consistent way to get them help. That was talked about at the very beginning, but there was no political will to do it. So right now, the sales tax off of food stays off of food, I think, under this proposal. Okay.
Well, it stays at 175,
Yeah,
right?
170. Well,
It
that's
stays
the local
unchanged,
rate.
right?
That's-
That lower rate.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Okay.
Senator Stevenson, just quickly, any thoughts about Representative Gibson's Inland Port Authority bill?
I haven't seen it. I don't know what they're doing. I became detached from that process about a year ago, and I have not been involved in it.
Senator Ibsen may know. You're on the, or no, you're not on board. Senator Buxton.
Buxton.
I got the wrong one, so
Thank
Senator
you.
Buxton.
Is there concern that this
You're on.
might go against the agreement that was tentatively reached? And you're nodding, Senator Kitchen.
Yeah, so the city council, which I was a part of last year during our special
You
session.
were, weren't you?
Yeah, we came together with House leadership and struck a new deal that the city and the state stood behind, and I think it gave us a better deal than the inland port conversations. I am concerned about Gibson's bill. I've talked to him about it offline. We're going to be meeting tomorrow and Friday, and hopefully we can find that same common ground that we achieved last year, because we had established a solid relationship that I'd like to preserve. Currently in that bill, I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but there are some clear red flags for me as somebody who represents Salt Lake City. So we're going to iron that out and hopefully get something taken care of, because Escamilla also has a really important baselining bill as well that we care about. And so if we could figure out a way to come together on both of those bills, then that would be ideal for me.
Did this come as a surprise, this bill?
I didn't know it was coming, so yes.
So doesn't the fact that someone in House leadership comes up with a bill in the waning days of the session that goes against the Doesn't that tell you something bad is up?
Well, we've got
for
2 weeks, so
inland
it's not
port?
quite the waning days. I still have a bill that hasn't been released yet, so things are happening, right? But yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting a bill. I'm surprised to see it, but I think that we can, make something work out of this. We're going to talk to, the Vice Chair of the Inland Port Authority, James Rogers from the City Council, Gibson and others, and we're going to see if we can't get this ironed out, because there are some concerns, but at the same time, this impacts not only Salt Lake City, but the entire state and region, so it's important that we get this right.
What are the red flags in the Gibson bill?
The language around lawsuits, there's an increase in the administrative fee from I think 2% to 5%. A number of other issues. I could definitely go through and redline it with you if you'd like, but we'll talk about it tomorrow and Friday, and maybe we'll have a clear answer after that.
Senator
Part
Stevenson,
of the process.
you had come up with a bill, as I recall, toward the end of one session that dealt with that inland port area, and then it didn't advance, but it was set up as a signal. Is this a
No,
signal?
it passed out of the Senate.
Right.
Passed out of the
that's right,
Senate,
yeah.
went to the House, and was changed and came back.
Yeah.
And then
So that's what
what we
passed.
have with the comeback is what we're dealing with right now, so.
But I mean, originally you tried to send a bill, or introduce or talk about a bill at the end of the session as a signal that the city need to play ball and work toward this inland port issue. Do you think that's what the House is doing now?
You know what, again, I don't think it's good time for me to speculate on it.
So, other questions? Again, if we don't, anybody online?
We did have a question about what are your thoughts on the Golden Spike resolution that's coming up?
We love it. I mean,
Yeah.
those of us in northern Utah,
Those of us in southern Utah like it.
yeah, absolutely. And this is pretty amazing. You heard O.C. Tanner be honored today. They actually have a commemorative pen that shows Utah basically as the center of the universe, where both rail lines joined, and it'll be a great event this May, and we're all looking forward to it. So we're thrilled to see it come. Any other comments?
I have a concluding comment.
Okay.
As I was listening to the discussion on taxes, a very wise individual once told me that there are 3 things that people become very disturbed over: death, taxes, and change. And we have now combined 2 of those into one issue. And I think there may be
The third
some
one could come possibly.
but there may be some wisdom in that.
Leave that alone, will you, that third one. So, with that, I think we'll conclude. That'll be Senator Stevenson's quote. So anyway, thanks.
We close.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you.
I think